Marvel Snap's newest Series 5 card, Herbie, the Fantastic Four's helper robot, is an extremely interesting 2-drop, but with so much competition, will he actually get the chance to shine? Herbie is a 2/3 with a very interesting ability reminiscent of Nico Minoru. After every turn, it swaps to a new activate ability. There are 4 possible activate abilities that Herbie can get. Once you've gotten one, it won't repeat until you've seen all of the others, which means the only way you're going to do that is if you get Herbie out on turn 1 or if you magic to make it turn 7. Ability number 1 is giving +2 energy to you on the next turn. Now, this is obviously one of the more powerful abilities if you can time it right. And by time it right, I mean use it on turn 5. This is absolutely incredibly powerful, but it gets more powerful going into the final turn of the game because that is when having the most energy can make the most difference because you'll be able to do the most stuff on the turn where it matters the most. This is a powerful ability, but it is contextual because, for example, let's say you haven't activated Herbie. Well, if you haven't activated Herbie and you roll this on turn 6, he's not doing anything. He's just a 2/3. So a lot of the time when you're playing Herbie, you have to weigh the potential of rolling this versus the, oh, wait, I don't actually know if I'm going to get this, of maybe I should just go for the guaranteed power of the other abilities. This is definitely powerful, but you need something specific to do with it. It's the kind of thing where if you roll it on 4 and you have a Sarah deck, you don't really get a lot out of using it on 4 because you're just going to play Sarah on 5 anyway, and you've got plenty of discounts in the deck regardless. It's definitely contextual, but it is probably the most powerful in a vacuum of Herbie's abilities. Next up is giving 2 of your cards at other locations +2 power total. So it'll give 2 power to one location and then 2 power to the other location. It'll split this up by doing +1 and +1. So you will need multiple units at the location to do that. Effectively, this makes Herbie a 2/7. And you're going to think about that a lot because there are kind of a lot of abilities that Herbie has that are just, oh, it's a 2/6, it's a 2/7, distributed in different ways. All of the abilities, other than the energy one, are different iterations of here are some points. And that is a very powerful floor for a card like this to have. When you talk about something like Sam Wilson, one of the things that made it so good was that its floor was pretty ridiculously high. You'd play it on 2, and even if you didn't have any of the stuff, it would still be a pretty reasonably powerful card, synergy agnostic. Herbie is kind of the same. You're playing it largely for the +2 energy, but you also have just like a floor of just a 2 very large a lot of the time. A 2/7 is nothing to scoff at, especially since 2-drops tend to lack actual power a lot of the time. Most of the 2-drops that you could argue are things like 2/7s or value equivalent to them, stuff like Merlin, those kind of things require additional energy investments. Herbie is just what he is. Another version of Herbie at 2/7, this one creates a rock at his location and sets it to 4 power. The way I look at those 2 abilities is complementary. One of them is a 2/7 distributed to the other locations, the other is a 2/7 at its location. And this is a very reasonable option to take. It's also likely going to get a little bit better because there are cards in the form of some of the Fantastic Four, Human Torch, and Thing that really want you to have full lanes, so this does help fill up your lanes. In addition, that is a created card. The rock will discount Mockingbird, which means there is some overlap with things of that nature. Of course, it can be a little bit awkward to activate this in a world where people are playing things like Shadow King and Killmonger fairly commonly. So some of the time, it'll be the kind of thing where you're just, I need these points right now. I want to get some floor out of my Herbie. And some of the time, you're going to be like, I want to play around Shadow King. I want to play around Killmonger. I'm going to let this one go. Lastly, double this card's power. Now, I know at base, this only ends up being a 2/6. But I think this is actually one of the better versions of Herbie that you can possibly roll, in large part because it, unlike the 2/7 at the current location that the rock represents, only uses one board slot. Board slot economy is an underrated discussion topic in Marvel Snap. It's not always the most relevant thing, but we're currently in a meta where it reasonably is. The reason board slot economy matters is it's the closest thing that Marvel Snap has to card advantage. If you play a 2-3 and your opponent plays a 2-3, but then your 2-3 turns into a 2-6, they need to play 3 more power in that lane in order to counteract your 2-3. Points are removal. And in addition, open slots represent the potential to put more points into a location. When 3 slots in a location are full, you have a pretty good idea of how big that location can possibly get if you have the slightest clue what your opponent's deck is. And that means that you have a lot more freedom to play against it, which in turn, to me, makes board slots a very valuable resource and makes this iteration of Herbie a little bit more powerful than it's getting credit for. In addition, buff decks are already a pretty big part of this current Marvel Snap metagame. Herbie goes very well with First Step's Mr. Fantastic. Herbie goes very well with Galacta. Herbie goes very well with Gwenpool. Herbie goes very well with Surge. And this ability is why that's true. Moving on to some decks. This is, of course, Mr. Surfer, one of the many variations of Herbie-based Surfer flying around. There are some questions as to which one of these you're actually meant to play on to. I don't think the question is that hard. If you have Mr. Fantastic and you have Herbie, I'm playing Mr. Fantastic, in part because hitting Herbie with those buffs is actually good in the world where I get the double. Mr. Fantastic is typically going to be your 2 of choice if you have the option, and then it depends on how well you think you can use that +2 energy and how likely you think you are to actually get it. In this deck, you're looking for either the +2 energy or the double most of the time with Herbie, but you can get away with basically any of the other ones because they represent the floor. Those 2 7s are the floor of what Herbie is in this deck. The ceiling of what Herbie is in this deck is doubling up to like 10 or 12 or something, or giving you 2 energy when you really need it to make sure you get extra stuff down. I do think that Surfer is not a great place for +2 energy on turn 6. It is a great place for +2 energy on turn 5, allowing you to play 2 3s on 5. Surfer has always cared about that pretty dramatically, so do keep that in mind as well. This list is overloaded with buffs, and it's also overloaded with things that take advantage of those buffs. And that's what Herbie is doing here. He is a combination ramp into your plays / have the ability to carry a buff well. There are so many cards in this deck that carry buffs well that it makes it an incredible deck for Mr. Fantastic First Steps, because as long as he's hitting something, it's going to be okay. Similarly, Mr. Fantastic First Steps can also impact your decision on whether or not you want to use Herbie for energy on 5 going into 6. If you have a 3 that has been discounted to 2, and then that allows you to play 3+3+2 with that Herbie 2 energy, that's really obviously good, and you should be looking at that. Context is key with this card, and I do think that it is a fairly skill-testing card, but its floor is also so high in terms of just being a 2/7 basically all of the time. The only times it's not a 2/7 are when you don't activate on 5, and then you also roll the +2 energy on, like, into turn 6. That's kind of it. That's the only time it's not giving you value. The rest of the time, it's a 2/7, and you're just honestly very happy with that almost all of the time. As a deck like Surfer, you like being able to just have 2s that have reasonable bodies, especially when their upside is this high. This is a similar thought process, but I like it a little bit more for Herbie with +2 energy specifically, because this and Sarah means that you'll be able to play 4 3-drops on the final turn of the game. That's just really strong, right? You have Sarah, all your 3s are 2. You have Herbie, you have 8 energy, you play 4 of them. God knows what else happens. You probably also have some Mr. Fantastics going on, some Surges going on. This is a deck that is fully looking at, I am going to do massive amounts of points on the final turn of the game, and notably, I like that it has Mobius in it, even though it has less payoff. This is a Surfer deck that I think does not match up well into the previous Surfer deck, because when Surfer decks play Surfer decks right now, it's all about who just has more power, and I think the other deck has more power, but I think this deck matches up better into the wide variety of things you might see on ladder. It's also a deck that has a lot of inbuilt surprise on the final turn of the game. Honestly, one of the things I was running into was sometimes I just had too much energy and too few cards. Like between Mr. Fantastic and Surge and Herbie's energy and Sarah, it was like, oh, I'm not even using all of these. I don't have enough 3-drops to play. It was kind of crazy just how good the acceleration was here, and I think this is a valid direction to try to take the Silver Surfer deck, especially if you're going to be trying to play Herbie in it. An Eco list cooked up with the intention of just viewing Herbie as a high floor, high ceiling card, which makes it a great Wiccan card because it allows you to have your little backup Wiccan, which makes your deck building make a lot more sense. Like if you have multiple ways of playing an early 6, it doesn't have to be Wiccan. You can also do other stuff. It makes a lot more sense to build a 6-drop heavy version of the deck. I'm not sure this is going to hold up compared to the Cannonball Mercury stuff. I think that stuff is likely going to end up still being better, especially in the heads up. But I do think that if you are trying to play a 6-drop heavy build of Wiccan, Herbie is probably going to make the cut over a lot of other 2s. The issue with Herbie in this deck, and it's also an issue that Mr. Fantastic has, is that you have so many good 2s and so few good 3s, and you need your 2s a lot of the time to be the 2s that actually put stuff in hand. So a lot of the time you'll be prioritizing a Merlin or a Kate Bishop over a Herbie on 2, just because you're gonna play a 2+1 the next turn, which means you won't be able to see all of Herbie's abilities, which does make him a little bit worse. Similarly, Mr. Fantastic can actually take you off curve if he hits the wrong thing and you roll poorly enough. He is awkward in here, there are bad things that can happen, and he can take you off of Wiccan. Long story short, I think this is a viable deck, and I think Herbie actually does represent something interesting for this iteration of it. I am at least non-zero tempted to try to get the Mercury Cannonball stuff back in here, because I think that stuff is ultimately an extremely compelling package, but I do wonder how I feel about doing that maybe without the Fenris Wolf Gladiator stuff. Maybe that's the kind of thing that Herbie can replace in this deck realistically in the longer term. I'm definitely interested in seeing what that looks like. Herbie's rock ability will discount a Mockingbird, and that rock can also get absorbed by a Strange Supreme. This makes him a fairly reasonable fit if you're trying to do some sort of Thanos revival thing. I do think that he does end up making the cut there. Like, I think that this is a card that you will try to run in Thanos for many of the same reasons that, you know, you had your Captain America Sam Wilson in here. It's not always going to be great, but it is going to give you the ability to do this thing that you are already trying to do. It doesn't fundamentally change the deck, but it can make your good draws stronger. I can't tell you how many times I've been like 1 card off for a Mockingbird and being able to make an incredibly powerful play. Additionally, Thanos is a deck that really loves having Wiccan because it really loves that 8 energy on the final turn of the game, which allows it to play Thanos and some other stuff. So it's not just that Herbie has the ability to discount the Mockingbird, it's also the pseudo-Wiccan ability of the +2 energy that it has. Again, the fallback is just that it's a 2/7 or a 2/6. That's perfectly fine. You're very willing to play a 2/6 with the upside of 2/7 discount your Mockingbird. Remember, that was what old Sam Wilson was. Or the upside of a 2 and you also get a pseudo Wiccan to make sure your flexibility is there on the final turn of the game. When Thanos is limited to just playing Thanos on the final turn of the game, just playing a 6, it is much, much worse than the alternative. So that extra energy, no matter how you slice it, is usually going to be extremely beneficial. You know where it's really, really gross to have extra energy is when it involves playing a Professor X early. That is one of the most disgusting things that Herbie can enable. Early Prof X, already a thing this deck is able to do, and then it can just figure out how it's going to win it later by using spells, Werewolf by Night, and things of that nature. That is A1 what Herbie does here, but he also has other modes that synergize with Prof X. Let's say you get a Prof X down on the Herbie location. Well, that turn, what you can do is you can either double him or you can add the 4 to it. That's pretty good too. Let's say you get the Prof X down on a not Herbie location. Well, there goes +2 power into the Prof X location. All of what he does sort of works with what this deck is already trying to do. These sort of soft ability to win Prof X lanes after the fact. just an extremely powerful thing to be doing in a general sense. This is definitely a card that upgrades this deck. The one thing that really sticks out to me about this deck, though, is it's just all twos. It's twos and twos and twos and twos and twos and twos and twos. I get it, but like, wow, is that really where we are right now? Because they have made a lot of ridiculous twos, and almost all of them are doing something for Agamotto. And I get it. Like, I understand. Like, we care about this. Like, there's other things that Herbie does with Agamotto too, right? Agamotto is a card that, like, you use the Herbie to make the 4. You have an Agamotto in that lane, and then you Images of Icon that because you wanted the extra thing there, right? Like, it has like a soft Sam Wilson dynamic. A bunch of stuff, right? It's just good. The same thing I've said about it in the other decks is there's some additional synergy here, but like the floor, 2/6/2/7, the upside, soft Wiccan, it's just quite good. I don't want to rain on anyone's parade. I'm seeing a lot of people excited about like Fantasticar High Evo. My instinct is that this deck does not manage to hold on to its current status, but I really want it to. I really, really would like this deck to be long-term good. Herbie in here is just a pure floor play. This is just like, sometimes I will be able to play a 6-on-5, and since I'm running such huge 6s, I really care about that. That's it, right? Like, that's actually the entire thing it's doing. It's like, sometimes I'll play a 6-on-5 and float. Cool, that's the upside. The floor, 2/6. Like, that's just, we keep coming back to this. We talk about Herbie. It's like, it's a 2/6 most of the time. Sometimes it's dramatically better than a 2/6. That's pretty much the entire value proposition of the card. As far as this deck goes, I am a little, I really want it to be good. I'm a big fan of High Evo, but I think it's just a little bit too middling to end up consistently succeeding. I like it a lot more than the version playing Magic, I'll tell you that much. This one comes from my Discord. It's actually quite a cool little list. I can't personally vouch for it being incredible or anything like that, but I did want to get some eyes on it because it does seem like an interesting application of both Mr. Fantastic and Herbie here in a context where they haven't been applied very often. This is a deck that is playing the typical AV style of gameplay, but it's doing so in the sort of outdated, I would say, Iron Man Patriot shell, and that does things like give buffs to various little small guys, Mysterio clones, the Demon, and of course Herbie's Rock. This is a pure points deck though. Like, I don't want anyone to get it twisted. This deck is just about point allocation, and that is the kind of thing that can be good or bad depending on metagame. A lot of good players tend towards liking decks like this. Like, I know that Derek loves decks that are just like all point allocation because it allows him to, if he doesn't have the points, he retreats. But if he does have the points, it's a chance to outplay in terms of where they go. This is why he won Golden Gauntlet 1 with Bounce, even though Bounce wasn't a particularly good deck. It's the same principle here. It's just, where are we putting the points? How well are we able to predict our opponent's output? How well are they able to predict our output? This is a deck with fairly unpredictable output and fairly large numbers of points, which is just the kind of thing that good players tend to love. So, should you buy Herbie? My instinct is that he's pretty good. If he has any problems, it's largely in the realm of what his competition is. Merlin is his competition. I don't know that he's better than Merlin. I'm pretty sure he's not. Mr. Fantastic First Steps is his competition. I'm pretty sure he's not better than Mr. Fantastic First Steps. So he's looking at competing for that third slot with things like Kate Bishop, for example, or Sam Wilson, or Iron Patriot. And I think a lot of the time he's going to be a higher floor play than them, but not necessarily have all the same specific hooks. In a lot of buff decks, I think he's going to make a lot of sense. I can see this card having the potential to be not necessarily a metagame defining 2-drop, but among that upper echelon for sure. I think he's a very solid card, and I've been generally impressed with him. It's just that, I talk a lot in this video about the floor being what it is. If you draw him on turn 6, the floor is a shocker, but I mean, that's also true of Merlin, right? If you draw Sam Wilson on turn 6, the floor is a 2/2. So, like, I don't think that's really a realistic way to talk about these cards. I do think that he is likely a bit underrated at the moment. And so I do want to get this video out there so people understand, like, hey, this guy is, like, maybe not better than the 2 best 2-drops in the game, but I think he's pretty close to that, and he's closer to that than I think a lot of people are giving him credit for. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I've been KMBest. You've been phenomenal, and I will see you in the next one.